Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing an advent box. So don't be afraid to say hi, let me know you're watching, and if you have any questions along the way then don't be afraid to ask. There's no such thing as a silly question. So good morning Thea, morning Carol, morning Jill. And hopefully today comments will work, which would be good. And good morning Deb. Okay, so today we are working with the October members kit. So the November one's just launched, but I thought as I have been trying to do this stream for a little while, I may as well get it in while I can. So if you have that file, you are going to start by cutting a front and a shadow as normal, as well as your roof piece if you wish. So I'm going to bring those in now. So your back piece you can cut out of some scrap. Your front piece is going to be your main body, and then you have your roof piece. Now note with this one what I've done is I've cut all the individual little cut and fold windows rather than actually putting the apertures in, and the same with our roof, and I've done it so that the two will align. Now for those of you that already have the file, if you reach out to me I can give you the canvas file with this already set up in. And morning Linda, morning Joyce, if I haven't already said hey. Okay. So with those pieces started, I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending to get going, and then we can assemble our front panel before we then put in our sides. So I'm going to talk a little bit about doing a little bit of decoration work before we get too far. So let's start off with our roof panel, and I'm going to get my messy mat just because I'm going to do some ink blending. So you don't have to do anything fancy with these if you don't want to. But I am going to get a little bit of bush corduroy and a tiny bit of rusty hinge. So I'm trying to keep to the nice warm browns so that when we do our shading it's going to look a bit more like our roof is receding away. So I'm going to start off with my darker colour first. We'll see how we go. So I'm going to blend along this top edge, and I'm just going to slowly bring more and more of that ink down onto our roof. Doesn't take very much. Okay, so you can see that we're starting to get a little bit of a gradient going. And when you're blending, remember less is more. It's far easier to add more than it is to try and take it off. So this one's going to go a little bit further. Now I have cut out a couple of the window frames and panes of glass as a reference, also out of this same card. So you should have something that looks like that. If you want to turn this more into a proper roof, then you might cut this panel out with grey for tiles. But in case you haven't noticed, we're going to be going for a bit of a gingerbread effect, which I thought would be cool. So now that I've done that, I can start to look at my house, and I think it'd be really nice to add a little white scallop detail just along the edge, so we can actually use our machine to do that. So before I go too far, just because I don't want to get anything inky, I'm just going to clean my mat. So you can just spritz that with a little bit of water and get the cloth and just take off all the excess ink off the top of that. Nice and easy. So to do our scalloped edge. And let's go to our close cam. Okay, time to wake up the scanning cup because it's nodded off already. So I'm going to go home to reset. And I want to add a scallop border, so therefore I'm going to go into my basic patterns and we're going to go into borders, and you can already see that there's going to be one there, so we're going to go for this one just here. Now this one is quite a big scallop, so it may not work for everything, so just bear that in mind. If not, let's see if there's something a little bit more scallop-like. Okay, no, all is not lost. So we're going to go for this one. Okay, and we're going to shrink it down. Now I could do with about 10 of those little scallops, so if I kind of measure halfway across my house where I want this scallop to be, very roughly, and we're looking at just under 3 inches, or let's say 8 centimetres. So let's take that width down to 80. Okay, now you're going to start thinking, hang on, that height of that is really small. Now, 2 things. Number one, we need it to be because of where it's going to be sticking, which I'll show you in a minute. But also, if you needed to have an extra larger area of card that you want to put some glue on, or the tape, then you can still weld an extra rectangle to that. Because if you try and alter that height independently, instead of getting nice scallops, what you're going to get is something that looks more like really dangly, almost like stalactites, which we don't want. We want to keep a nice neat scallop. So Carol did hers in canvas. Yep, you can do it in canvas if you want to too. Okay, so I'm going to add 2 of those because I've measured that halfway point, and we can go okay. So now we have our 2 little sections of scallop, and if we go to edit, move, and we can zoom in so you can see those a little bit better. We can even go in a bit further. So there's our 2 sections. Now obviously at the moment, if we were to try and weld those, it's not going to work because they're not touching. So we can do it so that we're just going to have a slight overlap. Or if you wanted to make sure that they're actually overlapping, you can take them over one. So I'm going to go OK. Okay, and then we're going to go to Multiselect and all. So because those are the only shapes on the map, you can use all and that's no problem. We're going to go back into Move. We're going to go up to this button here, which is a line, and we're going to align it to the top so that we can make sure our scallops are in a nice straight line, and we can go OK. Okay. Object Edit and Weld. Okay, so it's not quite overlapping enough. Okay. Tap on your canvas so that it goes back to having one object selected. Go to your Move, and we're going to use our keys to nudge. That way we know that it's still aligned to the top, and it probably only needs one nudge. Select all again, Object Edit. Okay, and there we go. Because they're now overlapping, it's going to say OK to weld. Now, as it says, it is irreversible, so if at this point you do something wrong, you can't just undo, but it's not exactly like it's rocket science to go back and rebuild it, so we'll go OK. So there's our piece. Okay, so I think I'm going to go with that, and then I can always trim it up if need be when it comes to actually putting it onto the house. And we may have to do a little trimming to that top edge as well. But we'll see how we go. So I'm going to go okay, okay, and now I need some white card to cut that out of. So let's bring my mat in. And let's get a piece of white card. Doesn't have to be a very big piece of card for this one. Ooh, Emma, do pass on my best to your mum. Okay, alchemy wax. I don't have that one. First of all, is it oil-based or water-based? If it's water-based, sometimes you can use a little bit of distilled water to reactivate it. If it's oil-based, it's a bit more tricky. Okay. So, I've popped in my standard auto blade. And I'm going to go to cut. Now, if we were keeping this outside bit where we've got these points, then I would consider going to the vinyl blade, just because you'll get a neater finish. But because we're going for this inside section, that's more than fine to go with standard. Oh, doesn't say on the jar. Might be worth having a look to see if they have a Facebook group, because quite often on the different manufacturers' Facebook groups, it does come up with how to actually refresh your products. Because sadly, these things don't last forever, so you are better off using them and enjoying them while you can. The other thing to look for is, if I switch to overhead for a moment, let's see if I can see it on here. There we go. So, let's go overhead. If you look in your container and you can see condensation, that's typically a sign that it's got some amount of water in there. So that's just a PGG one. And that didn't change over. Come on. iPad's going to go out the window. Right, I'll do it this way. There you go. So, if you can see, it might be a little close for it to handle. There's a little bit of water that you can see kind of in there around the top. I hope she didn't do it on the toaster. That sounds extraordinarily painful. I'm quite prone to burning myself. I have quite a knack of doing that. The worst one I ever did it on, I have to say, is custard. That was not good. That was extraordinarily painful for quite a few days, if not weeks. So there's our scallop. Let's bring in our house and our roof piece. There we go. So now when we look at this, you want to make sure when you're sticking it on that you aren't going to be blocking your little cut lines, okay? So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is you've got this row here. So you want to make sure that you're not overlapping that. So if I pop that on here, we can use this as a guide. So we can go, actually, we need to take a little bit off this edge here. Now, if we were to try and do that with a trimmer, it's going to be quite tricky. So what I would say is it is a craft knife situation. So those of a nervous disposition may want to look away. So I'm going to use my grid on my mat to try and get this lined up and level, because there's nothing worse than wonky icing. And I can also use the grid on my ruler as well to kind of help me out. Okay, I want to take that over just a touch. About there. Yeah, I am a walking burn hazard. I managed to burn myself with a kettle. I managed to do it when I was a kid. Trying to remind myself in the roasting tin. Don't ask. Don't know. And I'll just snip this last little bit just where it hasn't quite got through. Okay. So I'm going to flip my roof upside down so that I can see where I'm attaching this to. Check that you have your card best side down, which I think is that side. I'm going to do a line of glue along this bottom edge. So if you have some thin double-sided, you can use that. And if you only have some detail glue, you can use that too. Oh, and that would be the end of my roll. Eek. So, won't be using double-sided tape. Time for a new order. Hey. So, just going to go for this one. And you just want to try and keep clear of your windows. Okay. I'm going to try and get this centered. So back that way a little. Just going to clean up some of that excess as well. Now let's check back from the front, and we should see that that is going to be clear of our windows if we just gently open. Let's press that down. So you want to make sure that this is well set before you carry on to your next bit. If you want to do a little bit of icing piping around, you can do that too. But I think for that bit that'll do. And I can even use what I've cut off just to go along this top edge. So let's do that very quickly. Now, because this is wet glue rather than double-sided, just be aware that if it does touch your ink, it is going to slightly change your colour. So try and keep it so you've got a nice thin layer that isn't going to squidge. Let's go up there. Let's go press that down. So for those of you that missed the beginning, the file for this will be added for members, so that where you've got your kit already, you can add the sides. So I'm just going to snip that one off. That one off. And then trim up these corners. There we go, one roof. So now I can line this up and we can adhere that down. So when you're sticking this next bit, if you stick over here, don't worry about it, because those two layers need to be stuck together. Okay, so don't think you've done something wrong. Just don't use a sheet adhesive that goes over the top of your cut lines, otherwise they definitely won't open. And hi Mum! You picked a good moment to tune in. So let's go and pop these all over. Here, down, that way. And I'm trying to kind of miss the little cut lines so that I don't go over those too much. You may get a little bit that squidges through, but now I'm going to use this top line to line that up. Make sure everything still opens okay, because while your glue's still wet, you can always just give it a little tweak. Okay. Now you'll notice what I haven't done yet is do the scoring for the windows. Now what I would suggest is, if you want to keep it so that it's a box that's opened by the recipient, don't score them. Okay, so that way then when they then open them, they should stay nice and shut. Okay, and you can also see from the back if there's anything that haven't been quite pushed through, so just double check and all those should be fine. Next challenge. So in order to build this next section, I had to do a bit of mathematics this morning. So, and what I did was I created my long sides first, where I actually put this up against my actual house in canvas or in Affinity, take your pick, and I actually drew a rectangle and I used that to guide my height. Then took that to a new artboard and actually added on the glue tabs, and that gives us our two long sides. So what we need to do next is we actually need to score these. So you can use a scoreboard if you want, or if you just want to use an embossing tool, that's also fine too. So I'm going to flip these onto the back, which is the smoother side of my card. And I'm going to use my embossing tool to line up. I'm just going to go straight down like so. And you want to use a good firm pressure so that you see a nice indent when you're finished. And we'll flip it round and we'll do the same this side. Like so. Okay, so there's our first side. I want to do the same for the second. So when I was planning how we would do this, I was thinking if we go outside first and then filling our little grid in the middle would actually be easier. So there's my two side panels. So then I took that same rectangle that I originally had and I shortened it down so that this bit fits across the roof. So again, we're going to score those in the same direction. Now, if you aren't using your scan and cut for scoring these, what I would say is just make a little pencil note as to which direction you're going in, because when we get to the next section, you're going to be going the opposite way. Okay, so I just did. I can find a little pencil mark just so I know that that score line is going down that way. So then when I score, I know where I'm going. Now if you want to pop an extra glue tab on these top and bottom pieces, you can do. But I thought I might need a little bit of play to put it together, so we'll see how we go. So next what you want to do is you want to actually fold these, so we're going to be taking these side glue tabs inwards. So you texture sides to the outside and we're going to fold those in. Now this is where your bone fold is going to come in handy, and we're going to score down there so that you get a nice crisp right angle. And the crisper we make this section, the easier it's going to be for you to put everything together and more accurate. So do a gentle fold first so that you're telling it which way you're going, then we can use our bone folder to kind of reinforce that. So there's our first side, and that's going to be going down like so. Okay. And you're going to want to have two of those. If you don't already have this kit and would like to purchase it, then you can actually download it from Buy Me a Coffee or our Creative Fabric fans page. That's CF Fans when you look for it. Okay, I'm just going to fold these so they're ready to go as well. These are a little bit easier to do because they're shorter. So texture side in, texture side in. There we go. And let's use some double-sided tape. I'm going to pop this along this straight edge here. Along here too. Now the other thing to note is when you're doing your glue tabs is to make sure that you don't do them too big, because you don't want them to sort of encroach too much on your actual apertures. So I'm trying to get this tape right on the edge. Maybe a little bit big in places, but you'll get the idea. And we can always trim up our tape after we've applied it too. just trim that very quickly. So I'm going to peel one end and I'm just going to fold it back. Now I'm going to take my side piece and line it up as close to that edge as possible, and I'm just going to fold that over. Just want to try and get it so it lines up at that top corner and at that bottom corner nice and straight. It may take a little bit of jiggery pokery, but we've got time. So this is no job to rush. You want to make sure that you get it done properly. So peel the rest of that tape away. Check your edge. Check the middle in case it sags a little. Not unheard of. So you want to get it as straight first time. There we go. So you should have something that looks like that. Okay. Then let's go around and do it in a fairly logical order. She says, let's go this end. Do the awkward one last. Okay. So again, just going to line that up roughly. Up to that corner, up to this corner. And I have done my miters on my glue tabs as well, so if you do it in Affinity, it's going to snap to that 45 degree, so you should be alright. It's one of those moments where it's like, try and get the backing paper off. Come on. There we go. There we go. So, next one. I'm just going to peel off that one there, just so it makes life a little easier when I get down to that corner, because otherwise I'm going to struggle. And I'm just going to fold that inside. So with all of these things, if you fold it inside, it's going to make that a little bit easier to do. So I'm going to line up that top corner, line up the bottom corner, check the middle on these long pieces, and just so that you get it nice and square, and we'll pull off the last little bit of tape. I'm just going to hold that back so I can see better where I'm lining it up to, making sure it's fitting. And there we go. Yeah, my middle definitely is a bit flabby in the middle. Oh dear. So who else has that as their like a New Year resolution for next year? So these inside pieces, our glue tabs are actually at the top and bottom. rather than at the sides. And that's so that we can actually start to kind of reinforce that top edge. I'm just going to do the same here. Now this is where I thought it could get a little tricky, because knowing where to put these in is a bit of a bind. But what I'm going to do is also, while I'm here, I'm going to score a couple of my little side shelves so that I can use those as a spacer. Fold that in that way, and if you want to do an S shape so that you have one going like that, you can do. If you find it easier to do that way, you can do that too. Okay, so whichever you find is easier. I'm not going to say what's right and what's wrong. Not in that anyway. But as long as your ends fold one way or the other, that's where you're going to start doing everything too. So I have two shelves that I can use either top and bottom or halfway down if I want to check that my shelf isn't sagging. And hello Tracy Christina. I would say I have no excuse, but the way my ankle behaves sometimes. I go for a walk and it thinks, you know, I've tried to murder it. So, if I flatten this back out, I can use the shelf, and I'm just coming in a little bit from this top edge, because bear in mind, when it all folds up, that is going to be stuck in there. So it is going to be a little bit inside, and that's going to show where this needs attaching to. Now don't make this mistake. You may think, oh okay, so I line that up to there and I fold over and glue. Don't do it. What you've got to bear in mind is, because we've unfolded it, we've actually got the shelf going up this way. Okay, so you can use double-sided tape, you can use adhesive, or you can use both. So this is one of those things where you might be better off using both, so that you've got a little bit of wiggle. Okay. There we go. And just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to put it so my glue tab's coming this way, just so I can butt up to that little shelf. You want to make sure that you're within your score lines as much as possible, like so. And fingers crossed, when we then go down this way, it should be nice and down the middle of that space. Now we need to get to the other end. So again, I can use my little spacer. Again, I'm going to come in from that edge. Now, this time it's going to pull up. So if you want to, you can actually attach your other one first. So if you're feeling really confident, you can pull it up and off you go, and then slide the next spacer in here and do it that way. If you're not so confident, then attach that next one at the top. So I think because it's live, and if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, I'm going to do it this way. And let's get my other one. Get my double-sided, terribly soft. It's the getting the backing tapes off that takes the time. There we go. So again, I'm going to go tab inwards, line it up so that's just very slightly inside. That score line up to there. Try and get it in the middle. Try and get it straight. Lots of things to be thinking about all at the same time. And there we go. So now you should have something that looks like this. Turn it round, and I'm going to apply my tape to the two tabs next. Okay, so the boiling water didn't work. Okay. So it's obviously not going to react to heat either, because my other thinking was if it was a wax, perhaps it just needed a little bit of remelting. But if it hasn't done it in a thing of boiling water, it's probably not going to do it. So let's get my little spacer again. And this time, obviously because of where it is, we can't necessarily just go and done. So I just want to hold that in as much as possible, fold this up, and this is really hard for you guys to see and I apologise. I'm just going to hold that up to that spacer, then let go of the flap. So we hope it's got it in the right place. If it holds, there we go. So just double check before it kind of sets too far. You can always take it back out if you need to. That looks about right. So I'm just going to give that a good press down. Next bit. Come on. Try and get back into peel off. Okay. So this session is going to show you how to put one together. And what you need to do is actually do two. And you have two options. You can either stick them back to back and have a freestanding advent box, or you can put a hinge between them so that they open like a book. So to do that you need it to be slightly bigger than twice the depth of one, just so that if you do put any embellishments on, there's room for those two. And this is going to be really annoying. Come on. Can get it if I trim it. There we go. Gotcha. Okay. So again, I'm going to fold it up, get my spacer in. So again, a little bit inside, fold up the edge, release the flap. And hopefully you've got something that looks like that. Now if you're looking at these and you're thinking those look a bit baggy, that's okay, because now what we're going to do is we're going to work crossways, so we're going to build the grid. So lots of tape for this one. And if you have a glue runner, this is one of the things where it's actually really useful, because you just want, it's not going to be terribly load bearing unless you're going to put something really heavy in your oven box. So as long as it's a permanent rather than a removable, it should be enough. And it saves you having to fight with a little double-sided backing like I'm going to for this one. Now there is no easy way of spacing this next section out. So what you're going to want to do is kind of go halfway between your sets of doors. So if you can't see, give it a little push so that you can kind of go, okay, halfway between there and there, that's fine, I can do that. Yep, and likewise halfway between there and there. So let's push these in, and I'm going to do it so it's a U shape, I think. Let's just have a look. Yeah, so that way up, get it round the right way, because the U I think is going to be stronger. So halfway between two windows, and just give it a press and offer up that side to it, and we're going to press that in too. So make sure that it stays down towards that front. So give it pressure this way, and we can just get some pressure in that way. So far so good. Only another 12 of those, no, 11 of those to go. Use a poker tool. Yeah, it doesn't always work for me. Just, I know when I'm live I'm accident prone. It's a nerves thing. You think I'd be over it by now. No, 2 years of doing these. Well, more than that. It's 2 years of going daily, but I was doing lives back in like 2017, I think. Okay, next one. This one's a bit trickier because they're a bit closer together. Right, let's just get that in there. So as long as you stay clear of the opening, that should be okay. But try and keep it so that your shelves are level. Don't try and do a Mr. Shelf. Okay, so now what you want to do is go through and score all of your rest of your shelves, and we can build that up. This is one of those ones where I wish I could go, and here's all these ones I scored earlier. I did do quite a bit of prep for this, but I didn't quite get round to doing this section. Okay. So in terms of scoring these, it really doesn't make that much difference which side you go, but just make it a little bit easy to see if it's a smoother finish. Now, if you want to do a photo insert, you can use the photo insert file from the kit to actually do that. So where the grey boxes are, you basically put in an image, or if you want to print that out as a stamping guide, you can use your stamps and colour, do it that way. We'll have quick looking comments at the minute. Okay, nothing yet. It's not that my ruler is sticky, by the way, it's that I have some groovy grip on it. If you're wondering why the card is sticking to the ruler. So it is actually a really useful tool to have. Especially if you use it a lot for line work or anything that is needing you to be accurate. Okay, we're nearly there. For this next one. Now, do you have to get these all perfectly level? No, you don't. They are there basically to keep whatever you put in the top boxes and not sliding down to the bottom. So, if you want to do this instead of foam board and cutting out the same holes as what you've got in the front, you can do. You don't have to do this shelf method, and you can just use our outside edges just to do that finishing off around the outside. The choice is yours. If you have bought the advent kit and you aren't a monthly member, do reach out and I can give you this file, because there's no way, I don't think, that I can kind of update what you've already downloaded. Those of you that are members, I'll put it up as a freebie for you. Okay, this is where you're going to find I go a little bit quicker. May not get spot on, but as I said, it's there to stop your chocolate, your sweets, maybe stamps. If you have a crafty friend and you want to give them some little stamps and maybe some dies, and you can split it up across the box. What else could you put in? Little teddy bears. Far less fat. Okay, so again, just going to hold these apart for this first one, so I can get it in. Line that up. Okay. If you want to let's just tweak that a little. There we go. Next one. So guys, what would you put in your advent calendar? Let's see. Lucy would probably have tea bags. She likes jasmine tea. I might just need to adjust these sometimes, is what I'm thinking. Just because they're a little bit too wide. I want to pull that back a bit. So let's go like that. I'm going to stick that in there. And do the same to this one. And it's just tolerances for card, really. It's easy to pull it in narrower here than it is to try and fix it on that last column. And there we go. Okay. So I'm going to do the same on this one. So rather than going where my score line is, I'm just going to take it in just a little bit on one edge. The other edge can fold as normal, but it's just to pull that in a little bit. Okay, so with the last row, it's probably kind of the trickiest. We'll get you there. One last one in there. Okay. Now, let's get this last set in. In there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick these three to this end first, and then we can peel and stick that side last. Just makes life a little easier, but make sure you do apply your tape first. So let's go that end and that end. Okay, now I'm hoping that Facebook is behaving and that you're all nice and quiet, but I have a feeling it's not showing me your chat. So I do apologise. Those of you that watch Monday will know that I did not see barely any comments, and it was very annoying because that meant if there were questions I couldn't answer them. And then I came off stream at the end, and you probably heard me go, "Oh, you stupid thing," because there were loads of comments that I just hadn't seen. Okay, so into this shelf here. That's not quite where I want you. So look at your fold line. Get those fold lines to match up where possible. Okay, it needs to move down a little bit. That middle one might need to move down too. Okay, there we go. But for now, just so you get the idea. All these extras. That one can go in there. Now let's just get the backing off this one. And the other's okay. There's always one. Come on. Let's see if I can get that pokey tool down there. Just the backing, thank you. Not with the tape as well. Come on. There we go, gotcha. Come on, fiddly. There we go. So that's going to go round that way. And again, I'm going to try and do this one at a time, so we get those level. So try and see your cut lines. If not, try and give it a little wiggle. So, and there. So then we have a grid. Now at this point, this is when you fill it, okay? So because we don't want to disturb the doors on the front, at this point, this is when you put all your chocolates in, or your little baubles if you can send it to a student for their tree. What else might you put in? There's loads of things you could put in advent calendars these days. Could be little miniature perfumes. Although if you're going to do that, use something a little bit stronger than what I've used. Just a little. Okay, then when you're done, we're going to want to put tape on all these edges. Now, what I would say is when you're taping, if you try and actually overlap your tape over your corners, you're going to hold that side a little bit better. So I'm just going to measure the tape. Put it on this top edge first. Is this the easiest bit? Nope. Might you want a friend to help? Definitely. So where these corners are mitre, you want to put them up to one another, because that's what the designs do. And same here. Try and get it to line up, and just give them a little press from underneath. And I'm just going to very carefully trim this off, so that we're not having too much tape overhanging, like so. Next bit, I'm going to go across this bottom edge here too. Still not seeing any comments, so I'm going to presume you're all engrossed. So again, just want to make sure you get up and over the top, line up your corners, give them a little press down, do the same this side. Okay. Now before you go too far, peel these off. This one can where it's a bit tricky because you don't want to accidentally pull it off these corners. At the same point, it's kind of where you've got to peel it off from. Come on. Very carefully peel it off. Any excess, just push that in. Then we can go down the long edge. Make sure you don't trap any bits of your tape. Otherwise it's going to be a nightmare to get those back out without opening the doors. Down here. And this is the easy bit really, because you haven't got to worry about what you're kind of attaching it to, because your shadow layer is a little bit bigger. It's coming. So, then make sure that you've got that whichever side it is you want to put it up. Ignore that bit. That was Natty having an off day. And I'm going to line it up from the bottom up, then at the sides to make sure that it is in the middle, and then we can just press that down. Now, before you get too far, just make sure you go back up to the top and just get that lined up as much as possible. So this one is just there to seal the back of the unit. So when you do your hinge and things, you are going to be wanting to work with another copy that's going to go over this. Okay, and then on the front you're going to apply another front. So hence I say with that bit you can just do it with a little bit of scrap. You can trim away anything that is visible that you don't want seen, and it's just there to kind of seal that unit nice and shut. And the shadow layer I've used is because it gives you that little bit of a leeway to get that alignment. Always it's a bit tricky. And there we go, we have our boxes, and now you just need to decorate your doors if you're going to do that. You certainly need to put some numbers on, and you are done. So you're going to do 2 of those, then apply a hinge or stick them back to back to actually have them as a book or as a freestanding ornament. The choice is yours. But if you are going to do it as a book, just make sure you do an extra copy of that front panel to put onto the front. So hopefully you've had a good time with how that's going to go together, and I will see you tomorrow when we will be doing something totally different. So I'm thinking it would be really good to do some nice tags, but I think those might be Friday, so let me know what you would like to see. I'm thinking vinyl would be really good, especially given that I've gone back to the original driver. So let me see, what would you like? Saying that, I'll pick one at random that we've missed so far. So Friday I will be getting messy on Pretty Gets Gritty, as well as on our page. So if that's your thing, tune in for that. Watercolour Christmas card. Okay, yep, I can do that. Nice simple one that everybody can join in with. Okay, so take care and I will see you soon.